From WisPolitics in Madison, you're listening to Capital Chats.
It's Capital Chats. I'm Megan Woolard, a reporter for WisPolitics. This week, I spoke with Yee Leng Xiong, a Marathon County Supervisor and former nonprofit executive running for state treasurer. He's set to face off against Wisconsin Heights School Board member Dylan Helmenstein in the August 11th Democratic primary. I talked to Yee about the role of the treasurer, his plans to increase fiscal transparency, and his Hmong heritage. I hope you enjoy. Well, thanks again for being on our podcast today.
Of course. I'm glad to be able to be here.
Yeah. I wanted to start off by asking you, in 2018, there was a push to actually, remove this office. Why do you think the state treasurer, is important to Wisconsin?
Great question, Megan. And I would start off by saying that in 2018, when there was a push, it was really a push from the Republican-led legislature, right, to remove this position. They labeled this position as a ceremonial position that you can take its responsibilities and delegate it to the governor and the state legislators off branches, right? But Wisconsinites and many of the individuals that fought against this knew that this was, in a sense here, a way to reduce the amount of accountability, the checks and balances, because they knew that if this referendum passed and this position was abolished, whoever controlled the governor's position would control the message of accountability, and whoever controls the message, the state legislator would control the message on accountability. So they kept this, but the Wisconsinites came out in droves and voted down this referendum because they believe in having someone that's not accountable to the governor, not accountable to the state legislature, but accountable to Wisconsinites, who will make sure that there are checks and balances, right? And make sure that the people will continue to progress. And that's why I strongly feel that this position, right, is not just a ceremonial position. It's a position with true and authentic responsibility. Its real main role and responsibility is being that independent fiscal watchdog for the state of Wisconsin, making sure that there's checks and balances in place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have quite a bit of experience, serving as a local elected official. Why do you want to take the next step and serve in a statewide office?
Great question. So all across my roles, I have managed public dollars, right? I'm not just in the legislative role making policies, right? I've done that on the school board, county board, village board, but also done that as a nonprofit executive as well, where I've actually managed real dollars. And it was through my experience of being frugal, making sure that we're holding things accountable. And because of the fact that the state of Wisconsin holds nonprofits and its local school districts accountable for how they're spending money, I also feel that same level of care, that same level of accountability should be applied to the state treasurer, the state of Wisconsin as well. And that's the state treasurer that comes into play. But in addition, because in my nonprofit role, I've worked to help numerous individuals, Wisconsinites, not just in Wausau, Wisconsin or Marathon County, but all across the state of Wisconsin, address the affordability crisis that's currently preventing them from getting ahead, right? And I want to make sure that I can do that. The state treasurer has a platform to be able to work with partners across the state of Wisconsin here to ensure that we're addressing the housing crisis, addressing the affordability crisis when it comes to health care, child care, when we're working to attract and retain talent, when we're looking to build up businesses. The state treasurer has a role in all of this. But in addition, I also am very upset at the fact that there is funds available that the state treasurer oversees, right? Along with the attorney general and secretary of state when it comes to the school trust funds. That money needs to be invested in our schools and our libraries across the state of Wisconsin, but made in a way that's more effective and more efficient, so that way, smaller school districts and municipalities would have the resources to be able to apply for funding for large capital purchases, right? Or roads, etc. Because I know that oftentimes folks in the rural areas, in the Northwoods, in the areas that are not usually accessible, are sometimes forgotten about. And most importantly, another part is obviously the trust for the unclaimed properties. I know that is under the purview of the State Department of Revenue, but the state treasurer can play a role in letting individuals know that this fund is out there. If I recall correctly, in 2022, this fund was about $600 million, and I think now it's closer to $900 million. If we are doing our job, this money, this fund here, This is not a rainy day fund. It's Wisconsinites' money that they have paid already to other businesses where businesses were not able to locate them. This is their money. We need to work in a way to return these funds back to Wisconsinites. And this fund shouldn't be growing. It should be getting smaller. And I have a plan to be able to reduce that down, during my first term of being state treasurer.
Mm-hmm. And, I do have to ask, this was the only statewide office that Democrats, lost last cycle. How do you convince voters across the state that someone from, your party is the right person to hold this role?
Great question. And I'm going to start off by saying this, right? The state treasurer position shouldn't be a partisan position, right? Accountability, checks and balances shouldn't be partisan. One of the things I really enjoy is the fact that I've won 13 times with democratic and progressive values in a ruby red conservative area. Not because of the fact that I'm out there talking about politics, but I'm getting things done. I'm talking about issues and working to get things done. And because of that, I continuously get the highest votes from in a conservative area. But not only that, I've been traveling across the state of Wisconsin. I've gone to over 40 counties. I don't just stay in the central Wisconsin area or stay in the Dane County and Milwaukee area. I'm going to areas as far as Vilas County, Sawyer County. I'm going to areas where it's all red, conservative. As a matter of fact, I'm out there talking to farmers as well. And one thing is for certain, they need help. They need accountability, they need transparency, and they need their own money to work for them. But in addition to that, I also know that Wisconsin typically wins by a landslide of 30,000 votes, right? I believe Tammy Baldwin won by 28,000 votes. Donald Trump won by 27,000 votes. So it's very, very tight. It's a margin of about 1%. And one of the things that I have, many of the other candidates actually don't have is, one, I live north of Highway 29 on the Democratic side, right? So I'm the only candidate that lives north of Highway 29. Or in central Wisconsin, northwest. But in addition to that, I'm of Hmong descent. There was a report that came out in, I think it was 2022, that said that there's the Asian American voting bloc in the state of Wisconsin here is about 124,000 voters, right? And out of the 124,000 voters, 58,000 of them are Southeast Asian, Southeast Asian or Hmong American in descent. So, and they have also stated that 50% of them have only stated that they've been reached by either the Republican or Democratic party. And then the remaining 50% said that 70% of the 50% that has not received any contact stated that they are actually not Democratic or Republican. They're independents. They're, willing to vote both sides as long as the issue matters. And as I said earlier, I don't talk about partisan politics. I talk about issues and I work towards providing solutions. And that's one of the reasons why I continue to get elected and I also get appointed to chair positions because of my ability to work with both sides to get things done.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned a couple of times, the importance of accountability and transparency in this office. Can you give me a few more examples of practically what does that look like?
Yeah. So one of the things I'm hoping to do, and as a nonprofit executive, we are supposed to demonstrate how our taxpayer grants are, going and how we're able to deliver on those metrics, right? One of the things I'm hoping to do is create this dashboard that would be available on our website that would showcase every county, basically where their money is going to, how much money is going towards TIF districts, how many of them are going towards school vouchers, public schools, how much of it is going towards healthcare, public safety, so that people kind of know where their money are going, right? But in addition to that, what I also want to do is also be able to showcase elected officials, right, on there, basically showing their net worth, when they started the office, whether, how much they are at now. Whether there's inside trading, I don't think so. Hopefully not. But, I'm obviously showcasing their per diem, how much they're claiming as well, so that way we are letting folks know what their elected officials are doing in office. But I also want to show that to let folks know where their money is going, so that they can better voice their concern, saying that they want more money to go towards roads, public safety, or, schools, so that they have an ability to be able to understand where their money is going, because knowledge is power, right? So if people knows where their money is going, they're going to be more open about it and they're going to voice their opinion. And that's what we need. We need accountability. We need transparency. And most importantly, we need our money to work for Wisconsinite.
Mm-hmm. Kind of in that vein, I know you've previously sort of mentioned, revenue generation as being a part of this. Kind of in what ways should the state consider generating additional revenue, and, what role does that kind of play?
Great question. When I became the executive director of a nonprofit in the Wausau area, it was actually on the verge of closure, right? It had $5,000 in its account, $50,000 in debt. When I left the organization officially after 9 years in January 2025, I left that organization with a $1.9 million budget. So totally turned that story around. Why does that have any significance in this question here? And I would start off by saying, when I became the executive director, I didn't box myself into any restriction. I wasn't gonna go in there and say I am not gonna do any fundraising on the side. I'm not gonna do any revenue generating events on the side. Well, I kept all tools on the table. I kept every option on the table. And one of the first things I want to do when I'm elected, is work with the governor's office to establish a blue ribbon commission to be able to look at the revenue and expenses of the state of Wisconsin here, so that we can evaluate where revenues are coming and where we can generate revenue, right? We need to look at things, putting things on the table like how can we increase more tourism? Because we know that sales tax has been kind of a major issue, a major way how counties has been able to balance their budgets, how our state has been able to increase shared revenue as well. I would be potentially open to looking at, additional funding coming in through, legalizing marijuana, right? Looking other ways as well, and making sure that we're putting all the cards on the table here so that way we can make sure that we are setting the state of Wisconsin up for success here.
Mm-hmm. Part of the state treasurer's role is to play a part in managing, state trust funds. The Common School Fund is probably the one people know of most. Can you speak a little bit more about, how you're able to manage these large amounts of money and, work with other electeds to do so?
Yeah, great question. So, in the government role, I've served on the finance committee for the Village of Weston, for the joint finance committee for the Everest Metro Police Department, on the Marathon County Board of Supervisors, and I'm the current board treasurer for the DC Everest School District. The Marathon County has continuously received a AA rating when it comes to bonding, or its financial rating basically, right? So it continues to have a healthy financial strength when it comes to financial management. Obviously, as I mentioned about my experience as a nonprofit executive, I've been able to keep an organization afloat, turning its story, a story around, and now being one of the most successful organizations in the state of Wisconsin. But most importantly, I've also helped establish several foundations and their endowments, right, where they're able to provide permanent funding for moving forward here for scholarships, for other grants as well. But I'm also sitting on what is known as the Common Good Philanthropy, which is a large foundation with over $200 million of assets, and we are able to provide funding to people, very similar to what the Common School Fund, the trust fund is, right? Providing funding to important projects, important groups, and be able to help address the needs in the community, but at the same time making sure that our funds continue to grow and stay strong. I have experience doing that, and I have no doubt that I would do a phenomenal job in this position because I've done this work before, even before even before being elected to state treasurer.
Mm-hmm. You touched on earlier about, engaging the Hmong voter base. You would be the first Hmong American elected to statewide office in Wisconsin. If you don't mind me asking, how does your Hmong heritage, inform your role in public service?
Yeah, and I will start off by saying I would be the first statewide elected official of Hmong descent in the country. So it would be a historical milestone for not only the Southeast Asian and Hmong community, but also the United States as well, and the state of Wisconsin. I've shared this story time and time again, right? But I'm a proud son of Hmong refugees. My parents came to the United States after the fall of Saigon, after the United States withdrew out, and they knew that they couldn't stay in Laos anymore. Because of the Hmong community's involvement and because of the withdrawal of the United States, tragedy struck my family within the first night. My aunt stepped on a landmine and was killed when my parents made the decision to leave. My parents spent the next 2 weeks living in the jungles of Laos, surviving off roots and mud water, and then they concluded their journey with burying my oldest brother at the shores of the Mekong River, who was just 6 months old. They then spent the next 2 years living in a refugee camp before they came to the United States, where my dad was a ginseng farmer. And then he eventually went on to work at a local factory factory where he joined the union there, protesting for better pay, better jobs, and also, a better health care as well. And I remember he was doing that before he could even speak English. My mom, on the other hand, was a seamstress, and then she went on to work in a local factory. And despite the fact that my family didn't have a lot, both my parents taught us the importance of service above self, and the fact that democracy isn't free. They believe in accountability. They believe that if you work hard, you will get to experience the American dream. All that's led me to a lifetime of service. I mean, I've spent my entire life working nonprofit, providing services to our seniors, connecting them to SNAP benefits, Medicaid, helping survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking, helping them once again regain control of their lives, and then also becoming executive director of the small nonprofit in the Wassa area, where it was a community organization for the Southeast Asian community as well. So it's led me to a lifetime community service, led me to giving back to others and being selfless about it, right? Not making sure that I put people's needs above myself. And because of that, in all my roles, I've managed public dollars, made tough financial decisions, but I never took that responsibility lightly. I'm a frugal person, but I also believe in investments as well, that if you invest, you want to see a return on investment. So I never took this responsibility lightly because I knew that whatever decision I make, it was going to impact Wisconsinite as a whole, and it's going to impact my neighbors as well. And I don't want anyone to struggle. I want everyone to be able to experience the American dream, to be able to have an opportunity to succeed and be able to live and, continue to not just get by, but get ahead.
Well, you thanks so much, for that answer. Is there anything else you want our listeners to know about you before we head to the polls in a couple weeks here?
The only thing I would say is that, because of my ability to be able to work with individuals across the aisles and being able to get things done, I've been endorsed by leaders from all across the state of Wisconsin. Many of them are not Democrats. Some of them are Republicans, some of them are independents. And because of my ability to get things done, I've been endorsed by folks like former Lieutenant Governor Barbara Larton, who was the Lieutenant Governor under Jim Doyle. I was also endorsed by United States Senator Tammy Baldwin and several other mayors and leaders across the state of Wisconsin here. And I'm the only candidate in this race here that actually has managed public dollars and also made tough financial decisions here. So when Wisconsinites are going out to vote, I ask them to not just look at my race and my, but look at my experience, look at my ability to get things done, and vote for somebody that's ready to get to work on day one. And I'm that candidate, and I'm just so thankful for this wonderful opportunity. And I always conclude by saying this, that it is only in America that where the American dream exists, that a son of Hmong refugees would have the opportunity to potentially be the first statewide elected official of Hmong descent, not only in the state of Wisconsin, but the entire history of the United States as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you again to Yee Leng Xiong and to you, the listener. For WisPolitics, I'm Megan Woolard, and this has been Capital Chats.